Hey Adeel, how you doing?
Well, thanks. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely to see you again.
Good.
It's always
Thank you.
nice.
I do. Yeah. I think we saw each other couple of times at Biffers, didn't we? Was that?
Yes, I had the unique pleasure of interviewing before and after, which is a fun was a fun
Yeah, it
evening.
was. Yeah.
Your evening kind of changed within like an hour.
Definitely. I was definitely looking at you through a bit of a haze, daisy haze. But yeah, it was
Indeed,
nice chatting to you. It was nice chatting to you.
it was lovely chatting to you as well. I will say it again. Congratulations on this wonderful, wonderful film.
Thank you. Cheers.
It's such a lovely film for so many reasons. I can imagine it was a very easy decision to say yes to this, but then the added bonus being that you get to work with Clio Barnard, who is becoming one of British cinema's shining talents, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it all started with me just saying to my agent, would she meet up with me if she was free? And I would have just been happy if we could have just sat down for a cup of tea and just had a chat, and not expecting a very slim chance that she'd say yes for a meeting, and even slimmer chance that we would work together and I'd be in one of her films. And then just one thing led on to another, and then she told me about the idea that she had for the film, and then we had these transcripts of Moe, who Ali was based on, and the more I describe it, I've talked about it quite a bit to people. The more I describe it, I'm trying to get it in a very succinct one-liner as to how it all sort of happened. But it was just this really slow-moving, gradual thing where suddenly we're rehearsing some stuff, and some of the stuff is based in reality, and some of the stuff is just from Clio's head, and then blink and you're filming, and it's still the same journey or the same essence of what that is, which essentially was just like a really lovely chat with Clio. It's that thing that sort of, it's just the through line throughout the whole process. Just it's a really easygoing, open, kind, collaborative director who created this space for us to do the work that we did.
Yeah, it's a good thing it wasn't a bad cup of tea, because that would have maybe left a sour taste in the mouth, literally.
Yeah, it was at Toronto Film Festival we first met, and it was just supposed to be one glass of wine, because we all had different. I had things to go on to. I think she had other things but we just carried on chatting. Just chat, and it was just like, yeah. Anyway,
So for you as a performer, what's the lure of working with her? Because you said there about wanting to meet her and everything else. What was the initial thing for you in terms of the draw of working with her? Why were you kind of so desperate to even be in the same room as her, let alone make a film with her?
yeah, something about the arbor initially, which was kind of, is sort of in essence quite an experimental film. It's something that's kind of this, it had a sort of a verbatim sort of thing to it, which essentially is like messing about with the idea of where a performance sits or lands, or who's the performer if you're speaking the words of the actual people who the characters are based on. So there's this really lovely thing of like messing around with the idea of performance and who's performing what and everything else. And then when I saw The Selfish Giant, I saw the same thing in The Selfish Giant, only it took on more of a traditional film sort of thing, which was essentially that those characters existed in some form or another, but it took on this sort of fictionalized quality to it. And I just found that sort of like just a really interesting way of making a film, or wanting to make a film. And I just wanted to be in that, really, and just see what would come out of it. And what came out of it was pretty much more of the same, which was, Ali and Ava are sort of based on some real people, but then the people that figure out the character, and some of the bits of the story in Ali and Ava are like based in real events that happened, and other bits are sort of completely fictionalized and came from Clio's head. And it's just this wonderful sort of process, and it's and type of cinema that's unique to her. So
Yeah.
I just want to be involved in that. And
Yeah, and so I mean, it's a wonderful love story for many reasons, but it's one of those love stories that's so kind of classic in terms of that it transcends all of the things that may be perceived as barriers, whether it's age, race, class, all that kind of stuff. It's just this wonderful, unique talent to kind of blend those things and have that love story kind of transcend in a really classic way. Did you and Claire feel that when you were making it, that it was one of those love stories that did kind of transcends all of the things that might be seen as being prohibitive to their story?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely feel like that's something that but just building on your point, it does it in a way that's very easy and tender. You know, it sort of does it in a sort of subtle way, and you don't realize that that's what it's doing until maybe you reflect on it a bit afterwards, or you're suddenly sort of in its grip or something, you know. And that's what I liked about it more, the fact that it wasn't too loud about that, you know. It's not sort of using that as a way, you know, sort of signposting it. It was just very easy and gradual, and yeah, I liked it. I liked it for that reason, but I liked it more because it wasn't that wasn't at the forefront of what it was doing. It was just sort of a part of what it was doing.
Yeah. How did you, obviously there's a lot of other stuff going on in this movie, but one of the great scenes, I think it's at the beginning of the movie, where we see you on the car dancing with your headphones in and all that kind of stuff. What were you listening to the music that she eventually put over what you were dancing to, or did you have kind of a playlist that got you in that zone?
Yeah, I think I was listening to Sylvanesso. I was in Sylvanesso track, and they put another track on top of it afterwards. But again, that car scene is like another example of Clio's sort of direction and process that she does. Like, that wasn't scripted, you know, that car, and it was something that we sort of found as the story was going along, that's something that would be needed for this story. And I think that's just such an amazing thing, you know, like, because it suddenly became this sort of it became sort of like quite a focal point for the character in a weird way, you know. And it was just sort of the magic of like being in the process with Clio and like going, oh, that's what we're doing now, you know. And it's but it speaks so much to the character, and the sort of like this undercurrent of like frustration or tension or like unexpressed emotions and stuff like that. But again, we were on set, and it was like, oh, we're just going to drive a car in a field, and you're going to have a dance on top of a you know, roof. Not to spoil it for anyone, but yeah.
as you do. Yeah. Was there, this is a bit of a more fun question, shall we say, was there much of Ali's man cave music collection that was in line with your own tastes, or was there a lot of your own kind of, did you put your own kind of slant on that bit of it in some ways?
A bit, yeah. So early conversations were just like with Clio, what music I like and listen to. So she got a bit from me, and then Connie Farr, who's like the music person, well, she had some suggestions, and Clio had some suggestions as well. So it's like a mixture of it all, really. But as Adeel, looking at all the you know, tracks that are played, like I'd be all over all of those songs. Like I love it all, you know, from the folk to the, you know, the punk to the rap, to the, you know, the hip hop and everything. It was like, I loved it all. I thought it was a really good selection of songs for one film.
It's a pretty good soundtrack, actually, to be fair. Yeah. That would be a fantastic little Spotify playlist, that soundtrack.
Yeah, we had to look at that, actually.
Look at
that. Yeah, it's on there. So.
There we go. That's my first thing I'll do when I've left you. As a final question, I can't leave without asking you about working with Claire, because as you say, the two of you have this wonderful chemistry, and it seems quite natural in the way that Claire wanted to shoot it and the way you guys kind of perform it. What was it like bringing that to life with her? Because, you know, in some parts of your career, you very rarely get to do not just a love story, but do it in this way, and to be this intimate, and to be this kind of ease with each other.
Yeah, just I think maybe the process that we were involved in sort of reflected the sort of emotional journey that we were going through, in the sense that like we had a chemistry test in sort of quite early on, and in a chemistry test, it's like this strange thing where you're sort of, your heart's rattling a little bit anyway, because you're meeting somebody for the first time. And weirdly, I was looking back on it and thinking about it, like there was this wonderful alignment with that and the actual journey of the film, you know. So it was like and there's a point in the film where those sort of feelings sort of bed themselves down, and you know, Ali realizes that he's with someone who he can just be really comfortable and be with, you know. And for me, that was sort of mapped out of the film as well. You know, there was a moment in the film where it was just like, oh, I think I know what we're doing here, you know, and it sort of reflected on screen as well. But I think again, I think that's Clio, you know, Clio sort of set up that space in a way that we were allowed to feel those feelings and allow for them to sort of, you know, be expressed in the way that they were. So yeah, and I'm sure, I don't know if Claire sort of feels the same, but that's my sort of takeaway from that experience with her.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, it's a wonderful film, and I wish you all the luck with it. I hope it does really well when it finally arrives in a few weeks.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
I love to talk to you again, Adeel, and yeah, good luck with everything. Thanks so much for your time.
Bye. See you.
Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.